Watch Dr. Drew's new show at 9 on HLN. Weeknights on HLN.
All right, what's the first thing we do when a baby's born? The first question we ask. In fact, we ask the question before the baby's born. We now moved it back and look at ultrasounds. We ask, is it a boy or a girl, right? Well, there's a couple in Toronto that is creating quite a stir right now because they are not saying. They're literally not saying. They're raising their baby. The baby's name is Storm, what they're calling gender-free. David Stocker and his wife, Kathy Witterick, argue that they're giving their child the freedom to choose who he or she, whichever it might be, wants to be. So, what is good about this? What's bad about it? Joining me to discuss it is Jamie Poisson. She is a staff writer for the Toronto Star, and she profiled the family. Also with me is clinical psychologist and author Lisa Boeski. And Cheryl Killa-Davis, her son, 5-year-old son, likes to wear dresses. We visited with her family a couple of weeks ago, and she's authored a book called The Princess Boy. All right, Jamie, what is your take having reported on this family?
Well, thank you for having me. Well, I'm a news reporter, so when I went into this story, I thought that my only goal was really to let it tell itself, and I hope that what we were able to do was create an article and a profile that raised a lot of questions for people about child rearing and parenting and gender and sex and how those all come together when you're raising your children. I don't think that the couple is pretending.
I'm going to ask you, are you surprised by the stir? Are you surprised by the traction the story has gotten, the amount of reaction people are having?
Yeah, it's quite overwhelming. I thought that it would be interesting, and I was hoping that it would provoke an interesting discussion. It's the second most read story on our website, thestar.com, in 2 years. And I've been getting phone calls from Austria, the UK, all over the US. And as soon as the story went up, people started emailing me responses, some good. They think that the family is very brave, that they're letting the children decide who they want to be. Other people feel like this is perhaps an experiment that will have harmful effects on the children, that they're sending them out into the world in a way that invites teasing and taunting. I think that it's creating a really interesting discussion. Sometimes the comments have been nasty, and I don't think that those contribute to a constructive discussion. We've received a lot of really interesting feedback.
Cheryl, let me ask you, should these parents be concerned about the world they are setting that child into?
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, as parents, we're all concerned about making sure that we're making the right decisions for our children. But this is just another example of courageous families saying, okay, world, we're going to challenge you about gender expression. And we're going to challenge you by not using just adjectives to say strong boy or pretty girl, but we're going to challenge you to say actually authentic adjectives such as pretty child and strong child.
And Cheryl, does it surprise you that people are reacting so powerfully to this? Do you get similar reactions with your son?
Absolutely. I mean, this is, I think it's just, as a mom, we go through this kind of thing. We try to make the right decisions, and we're doing the best for our children. And this is another example. I haven't met the family, but my hope is that there's an authenticity there, just as our family. I mean, my child, Dyson, started doing this when he was almost 2 years old, and he's a very strong extrovert child. So he's sending messages by saying, accept me for who I am, and this family is challenging us to do the same. We need to get to a place of acceptance.
Well, Lisa, you're a child psychologist, and we have a family here that is sort of experimenting on a child. It's a human study of one, is it not?
That's exactly right. I mean, we do have a culture we have a culture that's obsessed with gender. I agree, and it's good that this gender topic is being out in the forefront. But I do think this choice is extreme, raising your child without a gender, because it really is a social experiment, and we don't know if it's going to have a negative outcome, and if it does, it's going to be the child that pays the price of that. And think about the relentless teasing, the bullying. I'm a little concerned that parents that their plan is going to backfire, and although his identity won't be male or female, his identity could be the he-she boy or the ex-boy, and he might be a social outcast, and that might be worse than if he had a gender in the first place.
You know, most research is pointing towards biology having a very powerful effect, correct?
Well,
very powerful.
I would say
not
powerful,
exclusive, but
not
powerful.
Exclusive.
I understand.
Yes.
So there's a likelihood that biology is going to express itself. And I know males, he's going to be angry. he's going to, you know what I mean? They're likely to get that kind of a reaction from the child
well,
potentially.
That's possible.
Yeah.
And I think just having to keep a secret of something of what you are. So eventually he's going to notice he has genitals.
Well, but isn't that the problem here in this story is that behind that, isn't there a subtle message that gender itself is wrong?
Yes.
There's something wrong with having a gender.
Exactly.
And that's the part that concerns me, because even in not having a gender, there's a message that it's Cheryl's son. It's a different story. He has a certain way of expressing himself,
Right.
and they're giving him the freedom to do that, as opposed to saying gender is a bad thing and let's hide it.
Well, that's
Which,
the
because that's a
difference.
subtle message, but we have a statement from Kathy Whittaker. Let me read it, because she I think tries to address this. She says, raising a child gender-free, she says, I'm not telling the gender of my precious baby. I'm saying to the world, please, can you just let Storm, which might, if it's a he, make him angry about itself, just let Storm discover for him or herself what he or she wants to be. On paper, it sounds great. It really does. But communism sounds good on paper, too. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the thing is, gender is one part of our identity and an important part of our identity, but you're also creative, smart, a good soccer player, an outgoing personality. And I think they're making gender a bigger deal than it necessarily needs to be. Kind of like what you're saying, by not having it out there, it makes it a bigger issue. So I think they can really, I mean, I am a big believer that all parents, including myself, we need to be exposing our boys to more feminine-oriented things. And we should be doing the same thing with our girls.
For sure.
All of us can work
Yes.
on that. But I think this takes it to such an extreme, it's like a social experiment.
Cheryl, I want to give you last words on this, because you've been struggling with this for quite some time, and I would call my expert here, having lived through this. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think, there's a difference between gender identity and gender expression. And you're absolutely right. Dyson said, I'm a princess boy. He identifies boy, and that's what's happening. But this is a bigger question. I think you're right. There is the entire experiment piece to it. But it is important for us to keep the conversation going. Why do we need to categorize? Why do we always need to compartmentalize? Why can't we just accept children for who they say they are, who they want to be, and get to a place where we're really focusing our energy where it needs to be focused, on things that are going on in the world, not on where our children are trying to be happy and be who they are.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Lisa.